I first downloaded Unity 4 years ago, and I've always been an avid gamer and also loved tinkering with software and computers, be it image editing, video editing, game modding, music software or whatever. I've done it at least to some extent. I've always liked the idea of game developing, but how the hell can games even be made, I thought to myself. I remember doing something small with C++ in my teen years over a decade ago, but I didn't really understand much of what I was doing, and my interest dropped quite fast. I also did a couple of computer engineering and coding courses in and after high school, which I was quite decent at, but nothing major. It wasn't until a couple of years back, actually 2018, when I really decided that I want to know how games work, and this is where my journey begins. So, I started with something very small scale, completely done with the help of tutorials, and I didn't really understand much of what I was doing. Bracky's tutorial in Cube Runner Wall Dodger game was pretty good and easy to follow, but when I started to add my own elements to the game I got frustrated since it felt like nothing worked. I didn't open Unity next day, and actually I didn't open it until a few months later. I was going abroad for 6 months due to a work trip, and I knew I would have some free time there with nothing much to do other than sports, and the internet was not good enough for Netflix, so I had to find something to do once I got there. I once again opened Unity up. I realized my problem before was pretty much that I didn't have that good of a foundation to actually start learning something as complex as game making. So I ended up watching a couple of 4-hour videos on C# and Unity basics, and after those it was time for my first true game, the Cube Catcher. Cube Catcher is quite basic, a game where you have to dodge red blocks and collect all the other ones. It has a couple of power-ups that make the game a bit more interesting. I also created a ton of achievements in the game that you can hunt, maximum time alive, max points, lifetime points and all that good stuff. And with achievement unlocks you can also unlock additional settings to play around, for example making your character smaller and faster. You can get some achievements more easier. This was my first real project, so I decided to take it as a learning experience, so I wanted to stuff quite a lot of content into it, like achievements, menus, music sounds, Unity ads, Google Play integration and all that. There is just so much work that goes into a game that is supposed to be released, compared to prototypes and games with no specific development goal in mind. Then Cube Catcher wasn't that pleasing audiovisually, so next I started working with particles and lights, and then Glowforce was born. You play as a small ball of light that collects green balls and dodges the red balls. Just now I realized how similar to Cube Catcher this sounds, but wait, there is more. The thing is, the more green you collect, the more light you emit, so the game becomes a bit easier. The number of red balls increase drastically when you advance to next levels. This was the first game with a rough AI, as I like to call it, but it was more about just random velocity boosts in random directions. The game also had a random map generator to some extent that it spawns a couple of walls into the game. It took a bit of work so that the walls don't block any areas in the game and make it unbeatable. I really like how the game felt, and the atmosphere, its music and sounds just felt calming and relaxing. I loved polishing this game since it really made all the difference to what it looked like. I moved abroad and then started a bit of a streak of prototypes and testing. I was thinking of creating a Stardew Valley in spaceship kind of game and started learning how sprite graphics and animations work and built this. Yes, this is my Stardew Valley in space. Okay, next up, Skig's Hunt, a top-down shooter with random generated maps, animated sprite graphics, pathfinding AI, and all that good stuff. I watched a video on how to make good video game enemies, and the guy talked about the first Doom game. All the enemies are iconic, distinctly different, and require different playstyles to kill. And this is what I wanted to achieve with this prototype. The black ones take a knockback from the weapon and deal constant melee damage, so player has to backpedal and keep shooting them until they're dead. Green ones shoot projectiles as random bursts, so you always have to be sidestepping and can't really know whether it shoots 1 or 5 of these green sludge balls. The blue ones spawn explosives somewhere near or under the player, so you can't be running in just one direction, and this was actually a fun little project, and I believe I'll be making something similar in the future. The idea for Blobber started from Overcooked that I like to play with my girlfriend. I like the idea of couch co-op games that are easy to jump into and play a few maps and then close the game down. The game is a story about 2 goo balls. Their purpose in life is to get from one sewer pipe to the next with as little jumps as possible, so it's kind of a puzzle platformer. The small blob can slide around, squeeze through small openings and do small normal jumps, and the big one can do only one thing: Angry Birds style slingshot jump. And by combining these two different playstyles, the players have to overcome obstacles. This was the first game that I really liked how it visually turned out. The particle systems, the hazy pastel color overlays, the childish sprites, etc. I did 4 maps for the game but never really finished it. The gameplay felt a bit odd. The slingshot jump isn't as polished as in Angry Birds, and creating puzzles for this game was pretty hard since the mechanics were quite easily exploitable, so it wasn't good in that regard. It was time for the big test. It was time for my first game jams. I took part in a random jam with not that much participants, but it was the only one at the time starting, so I decided what the heck. The topic was cafe. So I created a story about a corporation where the workers needed their Monday morning's coffee or they would quit the job, and if there ever was enough quitters, the corp would go bankrupt. The Final Monday is the name of the game. You had to pour the correct coffee for the characters, and once the brew were emptied, you had to put some more coffee beans in. And that's all there is to it. But once again, something cool in this game system-wise was the queuing with the AI dudes. Also, this was the first time I worked with animations like this, so it was a lot of fun learning all the new things. I also created my own music with some free web-based music software. And I really don't like this music. It's quite irritating. So next up, game jam number 2. Bracky's game jam was about rewind. I knew 90% of the people would make some kind of a time manipulation game, and I wanted to go another route. I time traveled about 3 decades back to the time of C-Cassettes and created a C-Cassette rental shop where you as the player must rewind the cassettes before renting them back. In its essence, that is the complete story behind it, but the game actually was a cookie clicker. I felt like I was going forward with my graphic skills very fast with each game, and this looked nice, and I also drew sprites for all the upgrades you could buy, so visually I really liked this one. This also had a new game plus that was actually broken in the end, but the first time around the game was as fun as a cookie clicker can be. It had 2 mechanics that really didn't require the player to play the game once they got the upgrades running and the auto clickers doing their job, but the game encouraged the player to wait for the randomly appearing power-ups and events. It also had a cool story window that changed depending on what upgrades you had or how much of them. For example, if you bought 50 pencils or enslaved Earth 50 times to do your bidding, it said something cool. I like to do sports and I also like gaming, so I started building an Android game that combines these two. It's a game where you turn on your GPS on your phone, and the game converts your distance that you walk or run into the game currency that lets you buy materials that you use to build buildings for a small settlement. This didn't really go any further than this. It had a clunky grid system for the buildings, but no other systems basically. All the buildings added values to the colony population, and the more population you had, the more utility buildings like pub or hunting cabins you needed to build. I liked playing Banished at the time, so it was kind of an inspiration here. After this, I did realize that someone had already done something like this. There is a game called Zombies Run, which seems pretty cool, and it is exactly what it sounds like, a sports app with zombies. After all of these projects, I felt like I knew the basics of Unity and C# quite well, so I wanted to take this up a notch and started my longest project so far, Generation Ship, which is not ready quite yet, but pretty much fun to play already. A lot of different intertwining systems, complex AI animated graphics, cool soundtrack, and pretty much everything a good population management game needs. The biggest thing I've learned in this project is actually the save system, which I had a lot of trouble in the beginning. I won't be talking much about the game here, since you can check out my other videos about it, but think of it as Banished meets Frostpunk on a stranded spaceship. That's pretty much what it is. The most recent thing I've done was a sports app. Deck of Cards Workout is a circuit training method where you assign a move to every suite and then start drawing cards from a deck. and do the amount of moves that the card value tells you. So I decided to create an app for Android of it, and this is actually my most downloaded upload on Google Play at the moment, so maybe I should actually do more sports apps. This was a fun, fast little project where I also learned how in-app purchases work. Getting those to work took about half of all the time it took to build this app. The initial system was ready in about 3 hours, and after that the next 2 days were polishing and trying to get the purchases stuff to work. So that was about all of what I've done with Unity so far. Thank you for watching this far. I've also done some text-based games with Bash at work when I was bored. The turn-based fighting game, Dice Poker Engine, and some other smaller prototypes. And all of the projects I've done have taught me something new, and usually the desire to start a new project came from the idea of learning one thing, be it sprite animation, ad implementation, XML saving or AI. It was actually the same when I was making short films, like experiment with a new effect or system I learned about. My time with Unity has been quite short, but when I opened my old projects before making this video, I was laughing and thinking to myself, how does this code look so horrible? What I was thinking here. I know my code still looks horrible at some points, but I'm getting better every week, and YouTube has been a great resource to learn all this from the bottom up. If you want to try out some of the games I showed here, check out my itch.io page in the description, and if the Generation Ship piqued your interest, be sure to subscribe to see more videos about it and be informed of the release date. Thank you for watching, bye!